travel soccer club is playing in a major tournament, this could be soccer, it could be hockey. After the first couple of games in this tournament, the way the brackets have been working, you realize that your team will actually have a better chance of advancing to the championship game if your team accidentally loses a game in the next round. Because by losing, your team's going to avoid playing the heavily favored team in the tournament in the semifinals, and theoretically, your squad will have a much better chance to advance to the finals by playing a weaker team in the loser's bracket. Now, this does happen a lot in soccer, happens in ice hockey, and the coach has to make a decision because what do you do?
Me again?
Come on, Mr. Hockey.
Yeah.
You've probably seen this, and you will see it when your kids are playing.
Yeah, these are, and actually I think there was just some cases where some coaches were fined for doing this in some recent tournaments.
Or they get dismissed.
If they get dismissed, USA Hockey's actually even covered sanctions and some coaches. For me, this is just it's pretty simple because me, I wouldn't forfeit the game, right? I just wouldn't. Nothing comes easy, so I think I'd rather have my kids go through adversity than forfeit the game. And
what would you do if you're up in the stands and you see a game, your kids are being coached, and USA Hockey is the premier youth sports organization. They really get it, and they're terrific with their policies on zero tolerance and everything else. But what would you do if you saw this happening to one of your kids in a hockey tournament where it looks like your kids are not trying hard or letting goals be scored against?
It just wouldn't happen. So it's just, the coach, either, my kid wouldn't be on that coach's team.
But during the course of the game, would you go down to the coach and say,
absolutely.
Okay. Even though you've been told, even though you're a veteran NHL player, don't come down and bother the coach.
Well, I would take my kid off the team.
In the middle of the games.
In the middle of the game. You gotta, well, I'm in a position I can make a statement like that.
Well,
so it's easy for me to say that. But,
right.
but still, even philosophically, that's to get to a level and to develop characteristics of a leader with sportsmanship, you have to make those tough decisions.
And I want to just point out, you guys already know this, these are three, not just really, really good, exceptional athletes. These people do represent the top, the pyramid, the pinnacle, the top you can get in sports in terms of what they've accomplished. So yes, they do bring a certain cachet when they go watch a game, an amateur game. People know who they are and they're watching all this, and it might be a little different if you're just an average fan, who went to a lot of Devils games or something, and you got a kid playing hockey, and the coach might not be so attuned to what you're saying. Devon.
I think that's absolutely disrespectful to the sport overall. Really, to just I couldn't imagine being a player and hearing my coach tell me, "All right, we're gonna lose this game so we can make it to the championship in another way."
You played football and basketball?
Yeah, growing up, I played football and basketball. Yes, but whatever sport it is, I just think that's. As a coach, that's instilling the wrong things in kids. Like growing up, for me, I was always taught it doesn't matter who you're going up against. Like you give your all. You stand with a big chest, win or lose. I can't imagine being a coach and telling a kid to lose or to not give their best effort. I think it's the wrong message.
Okay. And now we get to our gamemanship expert.
It's ironic. I actually had a conversation about this a couple months ago because there was an article that came out about two youth level soccer teams that coaches agreed before the game that if they both tied, it was the benefit for both teams, so they passed the ball around for the entire game.
Nobody tried to move the ball.
Yep. And so again, I'm in agreement here with. You have to respect the game, and that's something that I've been taught since I was a kid. And I had a coach somewhere along the lines, and I can't even pinpoint when, they said, in order to be the best, you have to play the best.
Correct.
You have to beat them. If you want to win a tournament, you've got to go through everybody to get to it. And that's always been in my head, and I say that to all my players now that I coach. You know, respect the game, respect your opponent.
Christie, if you were coaching now,
Yes.
I mean, and you're coaching a tournament, travel, or a high school match, and you see this, your team wouldn't do it. But if you saw the opposing team not trying very hard or letting goals go in uncontested, what would you say? Would you say anything to the ref? Would you say anything to the opposing coach?
I would definitely have a conversation with both. It's hard with soccer because there's no stoppages really.
I know, but there's a
Yeah.
halftime.
Absolutely, that would absolutely occur at halftime, and the first available stoppage.
And the coach said to you, look, coach, you know, you guys are awesome, but we could advance if we lose to you guys, and then we can go on and play somebody, you know, in another round and help our cause.
I would just simply say to them, you know, the example that you're setting for your team is not a good example, and I would have a conversation with my team after the game about it, you know, because it would be obvious to them that the opponents weren't playing.
And yet, this does happen, and it happens primarily, of course, in soccer and in ice hockey. When you have a tournament, and of course, so they got to play a lot of games and brackets in a short period of time, this does occur. And I've often wondered, if you're the coach, you say, well, we're here to win, we travel a long way, this is our chance to really get to the finals, the championship match, and yet it's kind of unorthodox. And many times, from what I've heard, it's the parents that go to the coaches and say, you understand this will work out. So that's, yeah.
For me, it goes back to the focus being on the end result and always winning. And that's an issue that I have in youth sports in general, because you're trying to, you know, you're playing a sport, there's multiple reasons for playing that sport. Everybody has different reasons for being there, but in the end, you're trying to have fun and gain something out of it. And so what are you truly gaining by?
Right, have fun. Wait a minute. This is serious stuff, and I have fun. That went up a long time ago.
Just a quick question on a related topic. I applaud the virtue of everyone on the panel so far. But so, Bryce, you played hockey at a very high level for a very long period of time, and I'm sure there were heated games where you were playing your rival New York Rangers, and there was probably a moment, things happened quickly on the ice, where you took advantage, right, or tried to do something that just was within the rules, but maybe gave you a slight advantage. You probably hooked someone, maybe you were called on it, or maybe you weren't, but you did things to give yourself a better position or an advantage. You know it probably was a penalty. I'm sure that happened. Let's just assume that happened at least once in your entire career.
Maybe once. Maybe once.
But now, as a father, you see your son playing hockey. Is there a different threshold, and how do you react to some, maybe not your son, but someone on his team, trying to take advantage or gain an advantage like that? Is it different as a dad than it was as a player?
Yeah, in how I coach it actually is, I don't look at it as an advantage, and here's why. Because where I put my focus in that situation is on the refs, because if it goes across the line, it gets called as a penalty. There's certain things just inherently in all sports, it doesn't matter where you're doing things to gain an advantage, gamesmanship, and so. And when it crosses that line, if you have good referees, in any sport, you get a penalty. So I don't consider it, I consider it as part of the game, whether in hockey, whether it's a strategic pass or a strategic way to block somebody out or get an advantage of somebody. As long as I do it and the ref thinks I'm doing it within the boundaries where it's, you're not respecting your opponent and maybe you're making your opponent look bad, then the refs they'll call it.
Well, let's take this one step further.
Yeah.
How old is your son?
7, the one that plays hockey.
Okay.
Well, here's a prime example. So my 7-year-old came up to me and he was all upset and he's like, that guy tripped me.
Yes, okay.
And I was like, so? I said, did the ref call it? And I said, he goes, no. I said, exactly. So you get up and you keep going. Like you can't.
Well, let's take one step further. For those of us who've had kids play hockey, and you're watching the match and you're intent on this, and you see, and the refs at the youth level, by and large, do a great job. But you see an opposing player check your kid from behind, a dangerous move. And it doesn't get called. And the kid you're watching on the opposing team seems to have a chip on his shoulder and is doing some dangerous things on the ice to other players. Would you, as a dad, at some point go down to the referee, or do you go to the opposing coach, or do you even go to the 7-year-old opposing player and say, you know, that's dangerous stuff? Would you do that?
Well, so, yeah, so all the above, and I think that's kind of an instance where the hitting from behind
Yeah.
hits the head is being basically out loud, right?
Yeah.
So I would take the approach of going to the refs and then going to the other, to the coach and just saying like, look, you're putting the kids in danger here, and you're being notified, and I am, making a statement here of fact that, your kids are playing dangerously. And so then you put liability onto the other coach and onto the ref. So if there's an instance that does happen where a kid does get hurt, you've made a statement.
I could have used you for a lot of years when my kid was playing. Yeah.
Devon, I got a question for you. With football and targeting certain players, like what happened in New Orleans, with the bounties on certain players,
Right.
what's your take on that as an active player now, and then, fast forward 15, 20 years from now when you have kids and they're playing football? What's your take on that?
I think it's just, it comes down to staying within the game. You can't do, going excessive and trying to do things to really hurt somebody is kind of ridiculous. Like, it actually reminds me, I don't know how many football fans we have out there, but Vontez Burfict, he plays for the Bengals, and he's a linebacker, and he actually went to ASU. I'm a West Coast guy, and from Arizona, so I know him pretty well, and he does things that cross the line. Like when I'm playing the game, I want to get a good hit, and I'll put myself in a position where I can really give a player a pop or something like that. But when you start to do things like a receiver's about to catch the ball, and I know he's probably not going to catch it, but I'm going to go low and hit him in his knee, like that's where the lines cross. And in the NFL, people start to lose respect for you when you're doing things like this, because you're talking about another man's livelihood. And if you're going to stay within the rules and give some knock somebody out, cool. But don't go for my head when I'm not looking. Don't go for my knee when I'm not looking. And I think that's something, I don't have kids or anything, but I think that's something that I'll kind of instill in my kids is, play within the rules. You can play physical, you can have tough, hard hits within the rules, and doing it safe for yourself, but also, the opponent. And it comes back to kind of respecting the game.
Well, Devon, let me throw you a hypothetical. Same thing. Again, this is hypothetical. Suppose you had a teammate who scored a big touchdown in the end zone, put on quite a celebratory dance. Considered unsportsmanlike. Would you take it upon yourself to go talk to your trusty teammate who's obviously scoring points for you and your cause? Yeah, it's hypothetical.
Right. I think in that situation, that's up to the coach to decide, or it's stuff that in privacy of locker rooms is talked about, just because you don't want yourself or your teammates to do things that's hurting the team overall.
Right.
So it's stuff that is definitely going to get addressed, but it has to be done properly. It's not something as a teammate I feel I would personally go right in the game and say something, because I know our coach will. I know that's something that someone above me is gonna address with my teammate. But it's something you definitely want to get in line, because you don't want to ultimately hurt the team when you do something well.
It is the coach's responsibility. And I just want to come back and underscore a point you made, which I think a lot of times is not really underscored when it comes to athletes at the professional, even at the collegiate level. There is a sense of brotherhood, sisterhood, a sense of we're all part of the same union, and there's a certain, you can play hard, and you should play hard, and respect the game, respect your opponents within the boundaries of the rules. but all the players know if there's somebody on some team who's gone too far and is known for cheap hits or cheap shots, whatever it might be, and that gets around the league very, very quickly, and that's a real concern. But the athletes all know, and the coaches know, but it's very, very well monitored. Yeah.
Christie, in your sport, there seems, especially on like some of the larger games and the larger televised games, there seems to be something that I think is a bad show of sportsmanship, and there seems to be some flopping. I'm sure the women don't do it, but it seems like a lot of the men do it, and usually Europeans. But talk about that a little bit. I mean, is that part of the game? It seems like it's awfully embellished, but it also seems like now it's just sort of like LeBron James, like it's like part of his thing, right? It seems like it's part of the game, and it's so prevalent that it's accepted. And like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is part of the game. The extent to which it's part of the game varies, and it varies by region of the world as well. I remember when I was growing up, I loved soccer, loved to play it, but I hated to watch it. Wouldn't watch it. I actually used to think it was boring. And so that was something I had to learn to appreciate over time. And then as I started watching, I refused to watch Italian soccer because to me, Italian soccer would stop every 2 seconds. There'd be flopping, dramatics, but that was part of their culture and the way they played the game. And I know playing for my country, we would play different, areas of the world, and depending upon who we played, we either had different, the athletic or the dramatic or and so it is sort of part of the game. Again, within reason, you have to hope that at some point the referee starts to take control of the match, and that's kind of what we look for in the game of soccer, is at some point the ref kind of steps in and doesn't allow it to happen.
Well, you would, if you have one of your players now in high school, you wouldn't sit and they're flopping a lot.
I wouldn't let them.
You would say, hey, and
Yeah.
you say, Coach, we're winning, I'm taking the seconds off the clock. You would say, no, we don't do it that way. We do actually address the issue.
Yes. If it was a consistent flopper.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
if I have a player who gets fouled and they stay down extra because we need an extra few seconds, I'm okay with that.
Or back to Gamesmanship now.
Yeah, because if they are fouled, then they're fouled and
Well,
they deserve that.
how do you know they're...
So this is, part of this conversation, I think, is knowing the level that you're coaching and having that conversation with the athletes as you go. Certain things at certain levels are unacceptable in my book, and the younger you go, it's more about you've got to teach the game to the truth of the game, and then as they get older and they start to understand the game, then you can start to build in these gamesmanship type things, and because the competition goes up, the level goes up, and the respect of the game and the understanding of the game goes up.
All right, let's focus for a second on gamesmanship, because invariably that does come up, and obviously it's touched upon a couple of times. A few years ago, I'm watching the Yankees game, and I'm watching Derek Jeter at home plate. It was an important game, and you may recall this. A pitch came in tight to him, and the pitch hit the knob of his bat. On the replays, it was clear it did not touch Jeter, it hit the knob, did not hit his hand. But Derek Jeter, went through all these motions and pranced around like, oh my gosh, my hand got hit by the pitch, and so on and so forth. And the umpire said, it's Derek Jeter, he's not going to lie. He gave him first base. But the replays clearly showed that Derek was involved with gamesmanship. Now, should he have said, no, it didn't hit me, I was sort of faking it, or should he just gone on with it? He got away with it, but afterwards it was like, well, is that good sportsmanship, or is that just good gamesmanship? Anybody? No one will take a chance at that, huh? Okay.
It could have pitched his hand.
It's a vibration of that.
Sorry, you never stayed here, I mean,
Come on.
Yes, in the back.
I think at some point, the ref is part of the game, and playing to the ref and what they're gonna call is just part of gamemanship. Now, what Christie was saying, like the level in high school, in middle school, in 7-year-old, like that's different. But when you get to a certain level, in my mind, the ref becomes part of the game as an uncontrollable that you can play to and strategize around. If they're calling things,
Yeah.
if they're not calling things.
Well, that is part of the game, certainly in baseball or in basketball. I mean, referees, umpires, they have reputations throughout the league. It's a tight strike zone they call, or a wide strike zone, or some referees in basketball let the guys and gals play with great reckless abandon. They don't call many fouls. So you're correct. Every umpire, every ref, every official has what they do. Now, it's a little different, obviously, with football because you have so many refs, and there's just so much going on at one time. But you do play to the referees and what kind of game they're allowing you to do. Yeah, Kobe.
I'm already seeing a war of words on Twitter between the Jets and Dolphins, specifically Brandon Marshall and Byron Maxwell. And just on the way here, I have a quote from Brandon Marshall that said, "I'll hold him and I'll push him around if that's the type of game it's going to be." Now, is that gamesmanship, or is that just allowing what the referees are going to allow in that game?
Well, if we only had a football player here to answer that.
I mean, I think Brandon's kind of just speaking on the physicality they might have against each other, and he's a physical blocker. Brandon Marsh is actually one of the most physical receivers blocking. So, maybe that's what he's speaking on, but I don't know the full context. So it's kind of hard
Well,
to
let's
say.
get to this trash talking. Okay, that's what we're talking about. I mean, it's on Twitter, but it's trash talking. Hockey, guy. I know the guy's talking the ice.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
probably
there's
talking
lots
about
of,
what movies they're watching or where they're going for dinner, right?
Yeah, no, these are all just any edges, I guess. As you advance in level in sport, the players get so good, and any type of advantage that you can get, that you can throw somebody off of their game, so that you can get that split-second reaction that they're just not focused. It's just it equals wins, right? It equals so.
This is gamemanship.
This is gamemanship, yeah, and trash talking is part of gamemanship. Like so, I was not a trash talker. I was just more of, and people didn't trash talk me because it didn't bother me,
Yes.
right? So but if there's players that if you say something to them, and it throws them off their game, you would do that because it's part of the game because, and it's not unfair to do that if but like anything, there's crossing the line. Like if you're attacking that person personally, their family, stuff like that, then that too does get around as well. But and then you're even seeing that when you cross the line, that stuff even gets out in the paper now, social blogs. Like it's just no one wants their character tarnished like that. So
That's the difference, I think. That this is just noise with Marshall right now, and it's just basically people feed into it. It's pregame trash talk. But as Bryce says, there's a line, and all these. I think that's where we're all about here. There's always these lines with sportsmanship and gamemanship, and if you cross that line to where you're talking about an individual competitor's family or personal situation, you've gone too far. And unfortunately, probably at the more amateur levels, where kids are learning the way in high school, that's where most of the offense takes place. It doesn't happen so much at the pro level because the guys and gals are, they're accomplished athletes. And as Bryce says, a lot of guys don't care. They don't pay attention.